Me Liam, 32. Got a decent job as an engineer, mortgage on a house in the suburbs, the whole 9 yards. Married to Anna for what feels like a lifetime, but is actually just over 5 years. When we first met, things were easy. Effortless, even. We used to spend hours just talking about nothing, laughing until our sides hurt. Our first apartment was a tiny shoebox, but it felt like a palace because we were in it together. She'd make fun of the way I organized my books by color instead of author, and I'd tease her for leaving tea bags on every flat surface. It was the kind of comfortable silence and easy banter you see in movies and assume is fake. For a few years, it wasn't. Then, slowly, something shifted. It wasn't a big, dramatic event. There was no cheating, no massive fight. It was more like a slow leak, a quiet deflation. It probably started about a year ago, maybe a bit more. Conversations became shorter, more functional. Did you pick up the dry cleaning? The car needs gas. What do you want for dinner? The questions we used to ask, the ones about our dreams or fears or stupid thoughts we had during the day, just vanished. I tried to keep it going. I'd ask about her day at work, and she'd give me a one-word answer while scrolling on her phone. The phone became a third person in our marriage, a much more interesting person than me, apparently. The real deep freeze started in the bedroom. It went from a warm, connected part of our lives to a barren wasteland. At first, it was excuses. I'm too tired. I have a headache. I ate too much for dinner. I'm not a moron. I understood. Life gets in the way. People get tired. So I tried to take more off her plate. I'd cook dinner more often, handle the laundry, make sure the house was clean when she got home. I figured if she was less stressed, maybe things would get back to normal. They didn't. The excuses just got more creative. My attempts at affection started getting shut down in real time. I'd go to hug her on the couch while we were watching a movie, and she'd stiffen up, giving my shoulder a quick, awkward pat like I was a distant cousin. A kiss before leaving for work became a quick peck on the cheek, her head already turning away. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. A provider, a handyman, a roommate, but not a husband. The rejection was constant, a low-grade humiliation that chipped away at me every single day. After a while, I stopped trying so much. You can only run into a brick wall so many times before you get a concussion. The silence in the house grew louder. Around this time, she got really close with a new friend from her yoga class. I never met her, but I heard her name constantly. All their conversations, which I'd overhear when Anna was on the phone, were about relationships. Specifically, what was wrong with men. They'd talk for hours about things like emotional labor and weaponized incompetence. Anna started using these terms. One day I loaded the dishwasher, and she came in behind me and reloaded it. She sighed dramatically and said she was tired of having to manage my mental load. I was just trying to help. Another time, I forgot to buy the specific brand of organic, gluten-free artisan crackers she liked. This was apparently an example of me not actively listening to her needs. Her social media feed also changed. It was all pop psychology infographics and relationship gurus talking about high-value women and how men need to step up. Everything was a test. Every interaction was a chance for me to fail. I tried to talk to her about it, genuinely. I sat her down one evening, I think it was a Sunday, and just laid it all out. Told her I felt disconnected, that I missed her, that I felt like I was failing but didn't know what the rules were. I asked her what she needed from me to feel close again. She looked at me with this detached, almost clinical expression. She said that she was glad I was finally ready to do the work. She told me that the spark doesn't just happen, it has to be earned. The conversation went nowhere. It was like talking to a corporate HR manager. A few weeks passed in this new, icy normal. I was just existing, going to work, coming home, eating dinner in near silence, going to bed. Then came the day of the list. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I'd just finished fixing the leaky faucet under the sink that she'd been complaining about for a month. I was feeling pretty good about myself, like I'd actually accomplished something. She walked into the living room holding a piece of paper. She had that same serious, determined look on her face she had during our talk. "Liam," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth, "we need to discuss performance improvement." I thought she was joking. I let out a little laugh. She didn't even crack a smile. She sat down opposite me and placed the paper on the coffee table, smoothing it out with her hand. She slid it over to me. At the top, in a bold serif font, it read, "Relationship Proximity Protocol, a Framework for Intimacy." I swear to God, that's what it said. I picked it up. It was a bulleted list, divided into sections like a business proposal. Section 1 was titled Domestic Contributions. It listed a series of non-negotiable daily and weekly chores, stuff I was already doing for the most part, but now it was formalized. Daily, post-dinner kitchen sanitation, 100% completion required. Weekly, full bathroom cleaning, including grout. Section 2 was emotional engagement metrics. This was the real masterpiece. It required a minimum of 3 unique and validated compliments per day. It specified that compliments about physical appearance counted for less than compliments about her intellect or decisions. It also mandated 1 proactive emotional check-in per week, initiated by me, lasting no less than 30 minutes. Section 3, Romantic Investment Quotas. This part detailed the financial and planning requirements. 1 spontaneous gift every 2 weeks, with a minimum value stipulated. 1 fully planned date night per week, where all logistical and financial responsibility fell on me. And then, at the very bottom, was the final clause, the punchline. It was under a heading called Performance-Based Rewards. It stated that consistent fulfillment of all KPIs across all sections for a period of 7 consecutive days would unlock the potential for physical intimacy. It explicitly noted that failure to meet any single metric would result in a reset of the 7-day progression period. I read the whole thing twice. I looked up from the paper and stared at her. She was looking back at me, her expression a mixture of smugness and defiance. She honestly thought this was a brilliant, modern solution to our problems. She had gamified our marriage, turned our bed into a final boss level that could only be unlocked after completing a series of tedious side quests. Something inside me didn't just break, it turned to dust. All the frustration, the hurt, the confusion of the past year just evaporated, and it was replaced by a profound, crystal-clear calm. It was the kind of clarity you get right before a car crash. I saw the whole thing for what it was. This wasn't about fixing us. This was a power play, a contract designed to make me a permanent supplicant, forever dancing for the prize of basic human affection from my own wife. All my efforts, my attempts to understand, my willingness to change, it was all just seen as weakness to be exploited. I folded the paper neatly in half. I looked her right in the eye. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even let the disappointment show on my face. I just nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. My voice was completely flat. "I understand. Thank you for providing clear guidelines. It's good to have a system." A triumphant little smile played on her lips. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd finally cracked the code, domesticated her lazy, emotionally unavailable husband. She had no idea what she'd actually done. She hadn't given me a roadmap back to her. She had given me an exit strategy. The very next morning, the new regime began. I became the perfect employee. I woke up early and made the coffee. While it was brewing, I unloaded the dishwasher. When she came into the kitchen, I looked up and delivered my first compliment of the day. "Anna, your ability to select a coffee mug is very efficient." She blinked, a little confused, but then smiled. "Oh, thanks." I got ready for work. Before I left, I found her in the living room. "That's an interesting color combination for your outfit today," I said, very bold. Compliment number 2. I didn't kiss her goodbye. I just gave a slight nod and walked out the door. Throughout the day, I set reminders on my phone. At lunch, I sent her a text. "I am acknowledging the hard work you do. It is duly noted." That counted as a compliment about her decisions, which was a bonus. When I got home, I immediately took out the trash. I cleaned the kitchen after dinner with the precision of a surgeon. Every surface wiped down, every crumb gone. "Kitchen sanitation complete," I announced to the empty room. She seemed pleased, smug even. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, basking in the glory of her master plan. She didn't notice that I hadn't asked her about her day. She didn't notice that I sat in the armchair across the room instead of on the couch next to her. She didn't notice that the house was filled with the sound of my compliance, but none of the warmth of my presence. The first few days were like this. I was a machine, a model employee executing a contract. I gave her compliments that were technically true but utterly devoid of emotion. "You have successfully navigated the television remote." "The way you parallel parked earlier was within acceptable tolerances." "This meal has an adequate level of sodium." She'd give me a weird look, but she couldn't complain. I was following the rules. Her rules. Friday was the mandatory date night. I made a reservation at one of those ridiculously expensive minimalist restaurants downtown, the kind of place where the portions are tiny and the bill is massive. I drove. I opened her door. I pulled out her chair. I did everything a good husband is supposed to do, but I was a robot. The waiter would come and I'd say, "Anna will be ordering first." She tried to start a conversation. She asked me about a project at work. "It's proceeding on schedule," I replied, taking a sip of water. She asked what I thought of a movie her friend had recommended. "I do not have sufficient data to form an opinion," I said. The silence between my robotic answers was vast and crushing. She spent most of the dinner looking uncomfortable, nervously checking her phone. I paid the bill without flinching, added a precise 20% tip, and we drove home in silence. When we got back, she stood in the hallway, looking at me expectantly. It was the end of the first week. By her own rules, I had fulfilled all my duties. I had checked every box. I knew what she was waiting for. She was waiting for me to collect my reward. I just looked at her. "All weekly objectives have been met," I said, my voice as neutral as a GPS navigator. "I am now going to read my book." I walked past her, went into the guest room, closed the door, and sat down to read. The look on her face was a mixture of utter shock and disbelief. It was the first crack in her victorious facade. She had designed a system to control me, but she had forgotten one crucial detail. The system dictated that intimacy was a potential reward. It wasn't mandatory. I had done the work. I had earned the prize, and I was choosing not to claim it. The second week was when things started to get weird. My cold, robotic compliance continued without a single deviation. I performed my chores with chilling efficiency. The bathrooms had never been cleaner. My compliments were delivered on schedule, as flat and uninspired as a corporate mission statement. "Anna, you have successfully operated the microwave. The throw pillows on the couch have been arranged in a geometrically pleasing manner." I was fulfilling my side of the contract perfectly, and it was driving her insane. She started trying to break the pattern. One evening, she put on a dress I used to love. She came into the living room and did a little twirl. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice a little too bright. I looked up from my laptop. "The dress is aesthetically pleasing," I said, my face impassive. "A fine choice for indoor lounging." I then returned my attention to my screen. Her smile faltered. She stood there for a moment, waiting for more, but nothing came. She was starting to understand that I was playing the game, but I wasn't playing to win her prize. I was playing to demonstrate the absurdity of the game itself. She began to initiate contact, the very thing she had withheld from me for so long. She'd accidentally brush her hand against mine when I passed her in the kitchen. I would just politely move my hand away, as if avoiding a piece of furniture. She tried to sit next to me on the couch. I simply stood up and said, "I need to go check the tire pressure on the car. It is a scheduled maintenance task." Every advance she made was met with a polite, logical, and soul-crushing wall of indifference. I was treating her exactly how she had treated me, like an inconvenience, an obstacle to be managed. The role reversal was complete. She was now the one seeking connection, and I was the one who was too tired, or not in the mood, except I never said those words. I just acted them. She started to get angry. "Why are you being like this, Liam?" She snapped one night after I delivered a particularly bland compliment about her choice of TV show. "I am operating within the parameters you established," I replied calmly, not looking away from the screen. "You're being a robot. You're doing it on purpose to mock me. I am merely fulfilling the terms of our agreement. The protocol does not specify the emotional tone required for completion of tasks." She couldn't argue with that. It was her own corporate-speak logic thrown back in her face. She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. I didn't flinch. I just kept watching my documentary about concrete manufacturing. A few days later, I met up with my best friend Jimmy. We've known each other since we were kids. He's a no-nonsense mechanic who can spot BS from a mile away. We were at a bar, just having a beer after work. He could tell something was off. I'm usually pretty talkative, but I was quiet. "All right, man, spill it," he said. "You look like your dog just died." I hesitated. Then I just decided to tell him everything. I pulled out my phone, where I'd taken a picture of the list. I handed it to him. He read it. His eyebrows shot up. He read it again, slower this time. A strange expression crossed his face. It was a mix of disbelief and pity. He handed the phone back to me and just stared into his beer for a solid minute. "Wow," he finally said, shaking his head. "Just wow." "Yeah," I said. "This isn't a plan to fix a marriage, Liam," he said, looking me dead in the eye. "This is an employee performance review. She's promoted you from husband to live-in intern." He took a long drink of his beer. "She's taken the one thing that's supposed to be about trust and connection and turned it into a transaction, like you're earning tokens at an arcade to trade in for a cheap stuffed animal." Hearing him say it out loud solidified everything for me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the bad guy. "So what are you doing?" he asked. I told him about my malicious compliance, about the robotic compliments, the scheduled chores, the cold efficiency. A slow grin spread across his face. "Good," he said, nodding. "That's perfect. Don't yell, don't argue. Just show her what it feels like to live inside the stupid, loveless system she built. Let her choke on it." That conversation was a turning point. It wasn't just me being passive-aggressive anymore. It was me standing up for myself in the only way I had left. The third week was the beginning of the end. Anna's tactics changed from frustration to desperation. She tried to apologize, but in a roundabout way. "Maybe the list was a little rigid," she'd say. "It provides excellent structure," I'd reply. She tried to appeal to our history. She brought out an old photo album and started talking about our first vacation together. I looked at the pictures without expression. "Yes," I said, "that was a successful deployment of leisure time. The budget was well managed." She was trying to find a crack in my armor, a hint of the old me. But the old me was gone. He had died the night he read that list. The house felt like a pressure cooker. The air was thick with unspoken words and her simmering resentment. She stopped going out with her friend. She stopped spending hours on her phone. All her energy was now focused on me, on trying to get a reaction, any reaction. She started crying, a lot. Sometimes it would be quiet sniffles on the couch. Other times it would be full-blown sobs in the bedroom. I would simply observe it. I have detected an audio-visual expression of sadness, I might say. Do you require a tissue? It sounds cruel, I know, but my empathy had been hollowed out. She had treated my emotions as an inconvenience for so long that I had simply turned them off. She was experiencing the loneliness I had felt for the better part of a year, the feeling of being completely alone while another person is sitting right next to you. The irony was suffocating. She had created a list to force me to be closer to her, and in doing so, she had pushed me away forever. The final confrontation happened on a Saturday night, almost a month after the list was introduced. I had just finished my weekly emotional check-in, which consisted of me asking her a series of questions from a business management website about team morale. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current level of satisfaction with our domestic synergy? She just stared at me, her eyes red from crying. She didn't answer. I made a note on a pad. Respondent declined to answer. This concludes the scheduled check-in, I said, standing up to leave. She completely lost it. Stop it, she screamed, jumping up from the couch. Just stop it, Liam. Stop talking like that. Stop acting like this. I turned to face her. My expression didn't change. I am acting in accordance with the protocol, I said. Damn the protocol, she yelled, tears streaming down her face. I hate the protocol. I hate the list. I just want my husband back. I stood there in silence for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. Your husband? I finally said. And for the first time in weeks, a hint of my real voice came through. It was quiet and cold as ice. You didn't want a husband, Anna. You wanted an employee. You wanted a subordinate to manage. I took a step toward her. She flinched. A husband is a partner, a teammate. You don't hand your teammate a list of demands and tell him to earn your affection. You don't turn love into a performance bonus. She started to speak, to make an excuse, but I kept going. For over a year I tried. I tried to talk, to help, to connect, and you met me with silence, with excuses, and with contempt. You made me feel like a stranger in my own home. My touch was a nuisance to you. I just wanted you to try harder, she sobbed. Try harder at what? At reading your mind? I did everything a man is supposed to do. I worked hard. I was faithful. I helped around the house. But it wasn't enough, because what you wanted wasn't a partner. You wanted a mind reader, a servant who would anticipate your every need without you having to communicate. And when I failed at that impossible task, you decided to punish me. I walked over to the desk where the original list was still sitting, a monument to her hubris. I picked it up. This, I said, holding it up, this wasn't a cry for help. This was a declaration of war on our marriage. You turned intimacy into a weapon and respect into a commodity. You thought you could control me with it. I looked her right in the eye. You wanted to know why I don't touch you anymore? Because you've made it clear that my touch isn't something you desire. It's something you award for good behavior. And I'm not a dog, Anna. I don't do tricks for treats. I tore the list in half, and then in half again, and again, until it was just a pile of confetti in my hands. I let the pieces fall to the floor. The game is over, I said quietly. I went into the guest room and packed a bag. She just stood there in the living room, surrounded by the scraps of her failed contract, sobbing. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel sad anymore. I just felt empty. I spent that night at Jimmy's place. The next day, I went back to the house to get the rest of my things. She was there. She had been crying all night. She begged. She pleaded. She said she was sorry. She said she'd made a horrible mistake, and I believe she was sorry. But she wasn't sorry for how she felt. She was sorry she got caught. She was sorry her plan had backfired so spectacularly. "It's too late, Anna," I told her. "You can't unring a bell. You showed me exactly how you see me. Not as your partner, but as a project to be managed, a resource to be optimized. I'll never be able to unsee that." So that's where we are now. I'm living in a small apartment across town. We're getting a divorce. It's quiet. It's lonely sometimes. But it's a clean, honest loneliness. It's not the soul-crushing loneliness of lying next to someone who sees you as a checklist. She destroyed what we had because she listened to toxic people and believed that a relationship is a power struggle, not a partnership. She wanted to play a game of control. She just didn't realize that sometimes the only winning move is not to play.
Be me, 42, Chief Administrative Officer at Regional Hospital in upstate New York. Salary $210,000 plus benefits. Been in healthcare administration for 17 years. Hospital is called St. Michael's Medical Center, 320 beds, Level 2 Trauma Center. We serve a region of about 400,000 people. Only major hospital within 50 miles. Staff of 1,200, including 180 physicians across all specialties. I handle operations, staffing, department budgets, basically everything non-clinical. Except I do influence clinical decisions through staffing and budget allocation. Been here 3 years, brought in to modernize operations and improve culture. Hospital has reputation for being old school, male-dominated hierarchy. Medical staff is 68% male, 32% female, typical for hospitals in this region. But leadership is worse. Department heads are 11 men, 2 women. Chief of surgery, chief of emergency medicine, chief of cardiology, all men. Most of them have been here 15 plus years, old guard, resistant to change. Hospital CEO is Dr. William Chun, 61, physician turned administrator. He's focused on clinical outcomes, patient safety, financial stability. Doesn't care much about culture or equity, just wants numbers to be good. That's where I come in, to push the culture forward while he handles medicine. When I started, I immediately saw the problems: systemic gender imbalance. Women physicians consistently passed over for leadership positions. Male doctors dominate committees, make all the major decisions. Women are concentrated in soft specialties like pediatrics and family medicine, while men control the prestigious specialties like surgery and cardiology. This is structural inequality. This is what I was hired to fix. First year, I focus on pipeline, hiring more women physicians. Work with recruiters to prioritize female candidates for open positions. Not officially a quota, just enhanced outreach to underrepresented candidates. But in practice, I'm pushing recruiters to find women for every opening. Year 1 results are good. Hired 18 new physicians, 12 are women. That's 67% women. Huge improvement, board notices and approves. But I'm running into resistance from department chiefs. Chief of Emergency Medicine, Dr. Robert Hayes, 54, comes to my office. The ER attending position, you hired Dr. Sarah Mitchell over Dr. James Park. Dr. Park had 8 years ER experience. Dr. Mitchell has 3 years. Dr. Mitchell is an excellent physician and brings diverse perspective. This isn't about perspective, it's about experience in a level 2 trauma center. We handle major traumas, car accidents, gunshot wounds. We need experience. I'm defensive immediately. Are you saying Dr. Mitchell isn't qualified? I'm saying Dr. Park was more qualified, and you chose the less experienced candidate. I chose the candidate who best fits our culture and diversity goals. He leaves frustrated. I document his resistance to diversity initiatives. Similar complaints come from other chiefs. I dismiss all of them. They're protecting their territory, uncomfortable with change. Year 2, I get more aggressive, start pushing for leadership changes. Target the department chiefs, the old guard who control everything. Chief of Surgery is Dr. Thomas, 58, been here 22 years. Excellent surgeon, low complication rates, respected by staff. But he's a man, he's held the position for 12 years, time for change. I start documenting minor issues, building a case. He's not responsive enough to patient complaints. He's resistant to new quality improvement initiatives. Doesn't prioritize mentorship of female residents. None of it is serious, but it creates a pattern, a narrative. Approach CEO Dr. Chun with my concerns. Dr. Bradford's leadership style is outdated and problematic. He's been chief of surgery for 12 years. We need fresh perspective. Dr. Chun is skeptical. His surgical outcomes are excellent. His complication rates are among the lowest in the region. But his leadership doesn't reflect our values on equity and inclusion. Show him the numbers. Surgery department is 75% male physicians. That's because general surgery is a male-dominated field nationally. And we're going to perpetuate that by keeping male leadership. I push hard. Eventually he agrees to explore leadership transition. Not firing Dr. Bradford, but suggesting he step down as chief. Offer him senior attending role, same salary, no administrative duties. He's offended. Rightfully so. He's done nothing wrong clinically. You're removing me because you want a woman in the role. We're creating opportunities for underrepresented voices in leadership. I'm being pushed out for political reasons, not performance reasons. He has no choice. Either accept the transition or leave the hospital. He accepts, steps down as chief of surgery, stays as attending. Now I have to find a replacement. This is my chance. Surgery department has 2 women surgeons, both relatively junior. Dr. Lisa Chun, 38, been here 4 years, competent surgeon, good with patients. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, 42, been here 6 years, also competent, active in committees. Neither has leadership experience, neither has been chief anywhere. But both are women, both are ready for opportunity. Also have 8 male surgeons who are more experienced. Dr. Richard Stone, 48, been here 10 years, trains residents, respected. Dr. Michael Torres, 51, 15 years experience, leads quality improvement. Both would be obvious choices based on experience and qualifications. But both are men, both perpetuate the existing hierarchy. I make the decision, Dr. Jennifer is new chief of surgery. Announce it in department meeting. The male surgeons are shocked. Dr. Stone speaks up. Jennifer, congratulations, but can I ask the process? How were candidates evaluated? Were we able to apply? I'm ready for this. We conducted a comprehensive review of leadership potential. Dr. Walsh demonstrated the vision and values we're looking for. He's not satisfied. I've been leading resident education for 6 years. I've published 15 papers. I sit on 3 hospital committees. Those are important contributions, but we need diverse leadership. The meeting ends awkwardly. Male surgeons are clearly upset. But I don't care. This is progress. This is what change looks like. Dr. Walsh takes over as chief of surgery. She's nervous, inexperienced. First month goes okay. She's learning, making decisions, growing into role. But then month 2, first major issue. Complex case, 67-year-old man needs emergency coronary bypass surgery. High-risk patient, multiple comorbidities, diabetes, kidney disease. Dr. Bradford, the former chief, is the most experienced cardiac surgeon. He's done hundreds of these procedures, lowest complication rate in the department. Dr. Walsh is on call. She's done maybe 30 bypass surgeries total. Patient arrives, needs immediate surgery. Can't wait for Dr. Bradford's shift. Dr. Walsh performs the surgery. It's technically sound. She does everything right. But patient's condition is more complex than she anticipated. Post-op complications develop. Patient goes into cardiac arrest. Team tries to resuscitate. 45 minutes of CPR. Patient dies. Mortality review is held. Standard procedure for any surgical death. Committee reviews the case. Outcome was likely regardless of surgeon. Patient was high risk. Any surgeon would have struggled. But Dr. Bradford is on the committee. He speaks up. The anastomosis technique used was suboptimal for this patient's anatomy. A more experienced surgeon might have chosen a different approach. Dr. Walsh is defensive. Are you saying I killed the patient? I'm saying experience matters in complex cases like this. Committee notes the feedback, but doesn't fault Dr. Walsh. Patient's family is devastated. They're asking questions. Why wasn't the most experienced surgeon called in for such a complex case? Hospital counsel advises we don't answer, protect ourselves from liability. Family hires attorney, starts asking for credentials for staffing decisions. 3 months later, second incident. Emergency trauma case, car accident victim, 32-year-old woman. Multiple injuries, internal bleeding, needs immediate surgery. Dr. Sarah Mitchell is on call in ER, the physician I hired over Dr. Park. She stabilizes the patient, orders scans, prepares for surgery. But she's not moving fast enough. Patient is deteriorating. Nurse supervisor suggests calling in Dr. Hayes, the ER chief, for consult. Dr. Mitchell refuses. I can handle this. I don't need him hovering. Patient's blood pressure crashes. She's rushed to OR. Surgery takes 6 hours. It's complicated. Patient has massive internal injuries. Dr. Mitchell does her best, but patient dies on the table. Trauma review is held. Dr. Hayes is on the committee. Time to or was 3 hours from arrival. That's too long for this injury pattern. She was waiting for scan results, following protocol. Protocol for stable patients. This patient was clearly unstable. Blood pressure was 90/60 when she arrived, within normal range. It was dropping. Any experienced ER physician would have recognized it. He pulls up the timeline, shows where delays happened. 45 minutes waiting for court scan. That wasn't necessary. Could have gone straight to or might have saved her life. Dr. Mitchell is emotional. Your Monday morning quarterbacking. I'm reviewing a case where a 32-year-old woman died unnecessarily. Committee is split. Some agree with Dr. Hayes, others defend Dr. Mitchell. But patient's family is asking the same questions. Why did it take so long to get to surgery? Was the doctor experienced enough to handle a trauma case? Another attorney, another inquiry, another family devastated. I'm starting to worry, but convince myself these are isolated incidents. Healthcare has bad outcomes sometimes. It's not about the physician's gender. Month 5, third incident. This one is the worst. 72-year-old man comes to ER with chest pain, classic heart attack symptoms. Dr. Emily Rodriguez is on call. She's another of my recent hires. 32 years old, 2 years out of residency, enthusiastic, progressive values. She examines the patient, orders EKG. It shows some abnormalities. But she misreads it, doesn't recognize the pattern of acute MI. Sends patient home with probable indigestion and antacids. Patient collapses at home. 6 hours later, massive heart attack, dies. Family brings him back to ER. It's too late. He's pronounced dead. They're asking why he was sent home. Why wasn't he admitted? Autopsy shows clear signs of heart attack that was missed. Medical records are reviewed. EKG is reviewed. The error is obvious. Any experienced ER physician would have caught it, would have admitted him. Dr. Hayes is called to review. He's horrified. This is a textbook STEMI. How did she miss this? The EKG clearly shows ST elevation in leads 2, 3, and AVF. Hospital legal team is panicking. This is clear malpractice. Patient should have been admitted, should have been treated. Instead sent home and died. Family has slam dunk case. Emergency meeting with CEO Dr. Chun, Chief Medical Officer, and me. 3 patient deaths in 5 months, all with questions about physician competency. All 3 physicians are among the ones you pushed us to hire. Dr. Chun is looking at me directly, accusatory. Are you suggesting I hired incompetent physicians? I'm suggesting you prioritize demographics over qualifications. Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Patricia, pulls up hiring records. Dr. Mitchell had 3 years ER experience. The male candidate had 8. Dr. Rodriguez had 2 years experience. The male candidate had 6-inch. In both cases, you advocated strongly for the less experienced candidate. Feel defensive. They were both qualified. They met minimum requirements. Minimum requirements for routine cases, not for complex trauma or cardiac emergencies. Dr. Chun is getting angry. Rare for him, people are dead. 3 patients who might be alive if we'd hired more experienced physicians. You're being reductive. Experience isn't the only factor. In medicine, experience is the primary factor. Everything else is secondary. He pulls up complication data, shows trends over the past year. ER complication rate is up 22% since you changed the hiring approach. Surgical complication rate is up 18% since Dr. Walsh became chief. These aren't coincidences, these are consequences. The legal team jumps in. We have 3 lawsuits, potentially $15 million in liability. All 3 cases involve physician competency questions. All 3 physicians were recent hires or promotions that administration pushed for. They're looking at me, blaming me. I'm the common denominator. I was implementing diversity initiatives that the board approved. The board approved diversity goals, not lowering standards. Dr. Chun stands up. I'm requesting an external review of all hiring and promotion decisions to determine if clinical qualifications were compromised. 2 weeks later, external review comes back. It's devastating. Law firm hired to review. They interview staff, review decisions, analyze data. Their report is 87 pages. I'm only given highlights. Pattern of prioritizing demographic characteristics over clinical experience in hiring. Multiple instances where less qualified candidates were selected. Department chiefs consistently overruled by administration on staffing decisions. They interview the rejected candidates, the men who weren't hired. Dr. James Park, the ER physician, passed over for Dr. Mitchell. He's now working at another hospital, doing well, no complications. I was told I wasn't a culture fit, despite having more experience. I've been working in level 2 trauma for 8 years. I knew what I was doing. Report concludes, hospital prioritized appearance of diversity over patient safety. Administrative decisions contributed to increased complications and patient deaths. Board calls emergency meeting. I'm required to attend. They're not happy. They're scared. Liability is existential threat. Board member, who's an attorney, speaks first. These lawsuits could cost us $15 million, potentially more. But worse, we could lose our trauma center designation. State Health Department is investigating after 3 deaths. Another board member, were you instructed to lower standards for diversity? No, I was told to improve diversity. I used my judgment on how. And your judgment led to hiring less experienced physicians who made fatal errors. The patient deaths are my fault. They're saying it explicitly. I hired qualified physicians who had unfortunate outcomes. You hired minimally qualified physicians who were in over their heads. CEO Dr. Chun presents more data, complication trends, outcome metrics. Every category has gotten worse since I changed hiring practices. Patient satisfaction down, readmission rates up, mortality rates up. This isn't coincidence. This is systematic degradation of clinical quality. Board votes. It's unanimous, 9-0. Chief Administrative Officer position is terminated effective immediately for prioritizing non-clinical factors over patient safety in staffing decisions. No severance, terminated for cause, escorted out that afternoon. 3 patients died. Their families are suing. I'm potentially named in the suits. Local news picks it up. Hospital administrator fired after patient deaths. Investigation reveals diversity hiring may have compromised care. Story goes regional, then national. I become the face of diversity gone wrong. Comments are brutal, half attacking me, half defending me. She killed people to push her agenda. This is what happens when politics enters healthcare. Other side, she's being scapegoated for systemic failures. But the patient deaths are real. The families are real. The pain is real. 3 people died who might have lived with more experienced physicians. That's not politics. That's not scapegoating. That's just fact. Spend the next months in legal hell, depositions, discovery investigations. State Health Department investigation concludes hospital violated standards. $2 million fine, 2-year probationary status for trauma center. 3 lawsuits settle, total of $12 million. Hospital insurance covers most. But reputation is destroyed. Patients are going to other hospitals. Revenue drops 18%. Hospital has to cut staff. Programs are eliminated. Dr. Chun retires early. Too much stress. Board wants new leadership. Dr. Walsh steps down as chief of surgery, returns to regular attending. Dr. Bradford is asked to return as chief. He accepts, stabilizes department. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Rodriguez are let go. Hospital can't keep them. Not because they're women, because families won't consent to their care. I don't want the doctor who killed that patient treating my family. They leave quietly, take positions at smaller hospitals, rural areas, where their limited experience is more appropriate for case complexity. I'm unemployable in healthcare, completely radioactive. Every interview gets to tell us about St. Michael's. Try to spin it. I was implementing board-approved diversity initiatives, and 3 patients died, and you were fired, and the hospital was fined. Can you help us understand your decision-making process? Can't defend it, can't justify it. Decisions speak for themselves. I hired less experienced physicians because they were women. I promoted less experienced surgeon because she was a woman. And patients died, and hospital nearly lost its trauma designation. 1 year after being fired, working at medical supply company. Sales coordinator, $58,000, calling on hospitals to sell equipment. Used to run a hospital, used to make $210,000, used to have authority. Now I'm selling bedpans and calling it a career. Walk into hospitals, see the hierarchy, the structure, the male chiefs. Used to think it was oppression, used to think it needed fixing. Now I see it's just experience, just competence, just people doing their jobs. 2 years later, see article about St. Michael's. Hospital regains full accreditation after quality improvements. Dr. Bradford is quoted, "We refocused on clinical excellence, hiring the most qualified physicians regardless of other factors. They're thriving, patient satisfaction is up, outcomes are improved. They still hire women physicians, still have diversity, but they hire qualified women, experienced women, competent women. Not junior physicians pushed through because of my agenda." See that Dr. Mitchell is working at small rural hospital, 20-bed facility, low acuity patients, appropriate for her experience level. She's doing well there, good outcomes, no complications, because the case complexity matches her experience. She wasn't incompetent, she was just inexperienced. And I put her in situations she wasn't ready for. Made her treat traumas she hadn't seen enough of. And a 32-year-old woman died because I prioritized gender over experience. That death is on me, on my decisions, on my priorities. 3 years later, 45 years old, still selling medical supplies. Makes $65,000 now. Got a small raise, still nowhere near admin level. Still in healthcare, but from the outside, selling to the people who used to report to me. Sometimes I see former colleagues. They're polite but distant. Everyone knows what happened. Everyone knows about the deaths. Nobody wants to be associated with the administrator who prioritized diversity over safety. Think about those 3 families every day. 67-year-old man who needed the experienced surgeon. 32-year-old woman who needed faster trauma care. 72-year-old man who needed experienced ER physician to read EKG. They're dead. Their families are devastated. Their potential is gone. And I contributed to that by hiring less experienced physicians. Not because I'm evil, not because I wanted people to die, but because I prioritized my ideology over clinical reality. Because I thought diversity was more important than experience. Because I thought good intentions would overcome skill gaps. They don't. In medicine, experience matters, skills matter. Lives depend on physicians making the right call under pressure. And junior physicians, no matter their gender, aren't ready for that yet. That's not sexism. That's just medicine. That's just reality. I forgot that. I ignored that. I pushed through anyway. And people died, and hospital nearly collapsed, and my career ended. Now I'm here, 45, selling bedpans for $65,000. Former chief administrative officer who killed her career and contributed to killing 3 patients by prioritizing demographics over qualifications. That's my legacy. That's what Google says about me. Administrator fired after patient deaths linked to diversity hiring. That's the first result. That's what I'm known for. Not for my 17 years in healthcare, not for my other work. Just for the 3 people who died on my watch. Because I hired the wrong physicians for the wrong reasons. And learned too late that in medicine, you can't prioritize anything over competence. Not diversity, not equity, not good intentions. Just competence, just experience, just skill. Because lives depend on it. 3 lives that I helped take away. By forgetting that fundamental truth. That's what I live with now. Every day, selling medical equipment. Walking into hospitals that I used to run. Seeing the structure that I used to think was oppression. Now understanding it's just experience-based hierarchy. Where the most skilled rise to leadership. Where patient safety comes before politics. Where lives matter more than ideology. That's what I should have known. That's what cost me everything. And cost 3 people their lives. Because I didn't know it. Until it was too late. And they were dead. And I was fired. And my career was over. All because I thought diversity mattered more than keeping people alive. I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. And 3 families will never forgive me. And I'll never forgive myself for forgetting that. In healthcare, nothing matters more than competence. Nothing.